Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Thriving Adoptees podcast. Today, I'm delighted to be joined by Garret Kramer. He's a coach and a great thinker. I've listened to so many of your interviews on podcast, Garret, and that's why you're here, my friend. I think it's just I love I love your message and your clarity. So I'm really looking forward to diving in today.
Thanks, Brian.
Yeah.
I'm happy to be here and talk about it. Thank you.
So listeners, I asked Garret to come on the podcast because love listening to him talking on podcasts, and also I've had his first couple of books for a long time, and I got his third book. It's great, and so when I asked him on, he said, actually, funny you should say that about the adoption stuff, but my dad was adopted too, and I didn't know that. Uh, but you didn't know that either for a while, eh, Karen? You found that out later.
I found that out when I could be off by a year or two, but I think when I was 21 years old.
Yeah,
My my grandmother, my grandmother had been sick. Yes, I was 21 years old, my junior year in college. My grandmother had been sick. She lived in Florida, and uh, during spring break, I was a hockey player in college, but after our season was over, rather than go hang out with my buddies over spring break, I thought it right to go see my grandmother in Florida. And she got plastered one night. And she was sick, but then she was better and she's drinking way too much wine. And she we somehow got on the subject of my father. I'm sorry if this doesn't have to be this long, but I'm just remembering it. And we got on the subject
yeah,
of my father and how at times he could be temperamental. And she says to me, well, dear, um, he can't help it. It's his Italian temper. Now, I knew nothing about
yeah,
being Italian.
right. Yeah.
And
Kramer
the
is not
minute,
an Italian name.
oh, no, his name was Kramer. So that doesn't make any sense whatsoever. But the minute she said it, I knew that she wasn't his biological mother. I knew it. I knew what she meant. And she was so drunk, I didn't really wasn't sensible to get into it with
No.
her. Like I just let it go. But I remember going back to the guest room. I was staying in this bungalow by the pool in this place in this apartment complex where she lived. I remember there was no cell phones then. I remember calling my brother and sister separately, both younger than me, and saying, "Are you sitting down? I've got something to tell you." And both of them were like, "That makes sense." All three of us right away were like, "That makes sense." So yes, and this may sound even crazier, but my father died 5.5 years ago, and we decided we were never going to bring this up to him unless he brought it up to us. We collectively decided, my siblings and I, that clearly this was a source of a lot of issues for him, or clearly he would have brought it up to us. And I led the charge in this. I thought it just didn't make any sense. We'd be making it about us and not him if we did that, and we were fine. Um, and that was that. That was that. Um, uh, but it did explain his Italian temper. For sure, I guess. I don't know what that even means, but yes. So interestingly enough, I would say that my level of compassion for my father and understanding of my father went through the roof
Yeah,
over the years as I reflected on
yeah,
this.
yeah. But and so he had a temper, but presumably he was an inspirational guy as well because he was a coach. He
Yes,
was a coach.
he,
One of the
he
reasons that you, I think, went into coaching, you kind of following your father's footsteps to a degree.
My father was a dichotomy. He could be, he always had time for those less fortunate. He had no tolerance for those so-called fortunate, if that makes any sense. He didn't have, he had no tolerance for authority, and that's kind of me also. Um, so because he had and children and even not just young children, but teenagers or even young adults, he had a lot of time for. This is what made him a very good hockey coach. Besides, he was incredibly bright, so he could stay ahead of the competition. Um, but he had a side to him as a that he would kind of push back on society a little bit, and it would drive him crazy. And he would push back with anger and frustration, especially when his oldest son was acting in a way that he didn't agree with. So it became a real source, as my grandmother was indicating. She didn't really know the the truth of it, but she was indicating that there was some friction as I got older that started to develop between us. That was because he didn't agree with me and he didn't quite know how to let that be.
Yeah. T
So
yeah.
that was hard. That was hard. Yeah.
Tell the story about what your dad said when you said that you were going to become a coach.
Uh,
Do you remember that?
well,
You must.
I don't. Well, I had already been a sport coach, so I'd already
Yeah.
been coaching at the high school level, the same sport that he coached, and I was very good at it. I was very for the same reasons that he was good at it. I was good. I was probably even better because I was a player. I had I was also a player.
All
I
right. He
lived
wasn't a
this.
player. Okay.
He wasn't a player. He wasn't a hockey player. He was a very good athlete, but he wasn't a hockey player. So I had been a player and I had played at a high level. So I kind of, those experiences are somewhat valuable, not essential, but valuable. Um, so then when I told him, I didn't really tell him I wanted to coach. What I told him was I wanted to bring my understanding. This is how I would say, I've said it back then, Simon.
Yeah.
We're talking um, almost 40 years ago now,
Yeah.
maybe 38, 36 or 7 years ago. So what I said to him was, I was coaching, I was teaching, and I was somewhat active in the construction business that my grandfather had. I was, and I was actually making a lot of money. I timed it very well in the construction, right in the 80s when Wall Street was booming. I was building houses for incredibly rich people, and I came up with a way to do that where I wouldn't have any risk. I did it for a fee, big fee. So you pay me $300,000 flat fee, I'll build your house at cost. And those fees kept escalating. So as a young man, I was making a lot of money. So then I
But it
told him I
wasn't
kind
making you
of,
happy, from what I can recall.
well,
But
no,
yeah.
it wasn't true to me. The whole game wasn't. I was good at it because I'm meticulous and I could kind of see. I have a good design sense. I guess my daughter does too. And I was good at that. And I organized and I hustled and I worked hard and blah blah blah. I'd grown up in that business because my grandfather put me to work on the construction sites when I was 10 years old. So I knew the business inside and out. It was easy. All you got to do is hustle. But you're right. It didn't. It clearly wasn't going to be my life's calling. No chance. I just didn't find that it was allowing me to express or serve in a good way. It served myself, Garret, very well. All right. Anyway, so I then told my father that I kind of stumbled into a different way to look at psychology and spirit. And I think I could teach this and really help people. And that's when he said, you're cut off. I'm done with you.
Oh,
He had no tolerance for this. He thought I just had to suck it up and work hard at this job. You could become incredibly wealthy, no, this is a stupid thing to do. It wasn't totally crazy. I mean, it was kind of risky. Um, but here I am,
Here
all
you
these
are.
years later.
Yeah. Yeah. So I thought I'd start by asking you about something I heard you say, and it's subject to we're talking about thriving adoptees. It's about how we thrive. It's how we thrive despite trauma, or as you may say, despite so-called trauma, right? Um, you said something on an interview, something like trauma is a result of the belief that we are separate selves. Something like that. Does that sound about
Mhm.
right?
That's going right to the heart of it. Yeah. I don't know that I would start exactly there, but we'll definitely get there.
Okay.
So it's
Okay.
going right to the heart of it. So because
Yeah.
we're not really defining separate set, we would have to. So I would say trauma. Let's say it like this: trauma is not. And by the way, let me just say this first. Sorry, I'm not asking anyone, including you, who's listening to this, to to believe what I'm saying. I'm just proposing how I see it. If it makes sense to you, then or anyone, then ask me. We can explore it. If it doesn't, then we should just toss it. I'm not saying I'm right about this. I'm saying this is where I'm at after exploring this topic thoroughly. Okay,
Yeah.
so trauma it's conventionally believed that trauma is the result of what happens to us,
Yeah.
an event, a circumstance, how we're treated by somebody. So what happens to us? I disagree with that. I would say trauma is the result. Trauma will result to the degree that we've been conditioned to believe that what happens to us can damage us. So maybe a little shorter. Trauma is the result of the misconception. Trauma results from the misconception that we are damageable or that something someone else does has power over us. So one will experience trauma to the extent that they believe that.
Can I give you another one of can I give you one of your quotes that I think sums up what you're getting at in really really simple straightforward language. Um, and this is from the back of Garrett's book. He's got some reflections on. So the book's called True Self: Notes on the Essence of Being, and the bullet point is: you are whole, we are whole. Nothing can change what is true.
Correct. That's right. And trauma will result to the extent that that truth has been covered up. And in all of us, it has been covered up to a certain degree. There is no one on this planet, even a newborn, who to some degree hasn't been sullied with the belief that that's not true, that something can damage us or make us incomplete or not whole.
Yeah.
So those who are reeling in so-called trauma, my heart goes out to them, but not because of what the events of their life, because they don't understand that those events are not as powerful as they are.
Yeah.
That to me is unfortunate. And just as an analogy back to kids, newborns, whatever. But let's say a little boy or girl is a year and a half, like one of my grandsons is, and I'm just using him as an analogy. They're not perfect either, but just so it's just an analogy. He ran into the corner of our stove so hard yesterday. I I hated it so much. And he went, his feet came out from under him, and he let out a scream or whatever, cried. But I'm telling you, within 30 seconds, he was exactly how he was prior, and a big bump on his head. There was no trauma. He's not afraid of stoves. he's he's it was absolutely gone. Now again, metaphorically, why is that? Well, because he has not been trained yet to believe that stoves are more powerful than him, or stoves can make him less complete or damage him. He doesn't have that belief.
Yeah.
So it's much like that. You and I, we've been around a while. This is this conventional belief that the so-called outside has power over us we have been inundated with that belief. In my case, for 64 years, it's almost impossible for me to not have bought into a certain extent. My work in my life is all about kind of unwinding that belief system, that conditioning.
Yeah. So can I'm going to want to relate it back to what you've shared about shared about your father and his origins and adoption and trauma, right? Put the whole thing together, right? So your grandma, your dad's mum, blamed his anger, his temperament, right? His anger, his temperament. She blamed it she blamed it on his Italian roots, right? She could have these days, because of where things are within the adoption space, she could have also have blamed his anger on the fact that he was adopted, and she could have blamed that on the relinquishment trauma, right? That is described by Nancy Verrier in this book. There's an American MD, medical doctor, who I think she became a shrink afterwards. She had two daughters. One daughter was biological; she gave birth to that daughter, and one daughter was adopted. And she was trying to understand the difference between the temperaments of her two daughters. And she came up with this theory called the primal wound, and the book was published in 1993. And reading that book made me feel, well, I didn't believe that I was primally wounded until I read the primal wound, right?
Yeah.
However, a lot of a lot of people, and so I read the book and I thought this explains everything. But then I thought, so there was a relief, a relief at a diagnosis. And then after that, there was a sense of doom settled in. I thought, I'm stuck with, I'm stuck with this primal wound. And then off the back of somebody that you know, another speaker, teacher in this area, a guy called Michael Neal, and one of his colleagues, I realized who I am is fundamentally unwounded, because who we are is unwoundable, right? And so I had this realization 11, 12 years ago, and I've been looking in this direction ever since. I've been looking to wholeness and to intactness, and trying to point people as
Such a
nice.
you do such yeoman's work. It's amazing. It's brilliant. Is it okay if I say a couple
Of
things
course, yeah.
about some of
I've just stopped. I just wanted to set
the, no, no, no,
some context
no.
here.
I do think I want to the main point about um, being undamageable. I think is something that we really should unpack for people because at first glance they won't quite understand that because
Indeed, indeed.
I could break my arm, my hair's getting grayer by the day. It kind of looks like all that stuff. So I think we should talk about that.
Sure.
That's the most important thing. But I do want to say something because I just think I don't even know if it's pertinent to our discussion, but it's definitely pertinent. So think about this a second. You read that book, and as you just said, you found immediate relief because you thought you had the answer. But then you described it as being short-lived. It actually get ramped up again. I don't know exactly what you just said, but something to that effect, right?
Yeah.
I actually think this is a very important distinction to make for people. And I don't know if you have ever heard what I'm about to say, but I found this very valuable for me because it looked to you that when you read that book and experienced relief, that you found the relief because of the answers in the book. That was the mistake. Answers in a book cannot bring relief. The only thing that can bring relief is the end of seeking. So what happened was because you thought you found the answer in the book, you stopped seeking answers. You had it. Problems are solved. So because you temporarily stopped seeking, relief poured over you, maybe even emotion. This is why athletes, after a tremendous win, will sometimes express emotion, not because of the win, because they're no longer seeking. And when we stop seeking, we're home. We're back to source. That's the relief. That's the relief we experience. But again, the world will convince us that it's the book that brought the relief, or it's the new partner that brought the relief, or it's Simon or Garrett giving you advice that brought the relief, or it's making money that brought the relief, or it's a substance even that brought the relief, any object. No, relief can only be experienced when seeking ends. Now, because the body mind we're trained to be, has been programmed to seek. We're heat-seeking creatures. We're object-seeking creatures. We're trained to seek. The answers are there. The answers are there. Go
Yeah.
find your identity
Like
there. Find
retail
your wealth
therapy.
there.
Retail therapy.
Exactly, but it's actually retail materialism. I mean, it's just the material world nature of it. Okay, so I mean, anything on any post on Facebook, someone's selling something, and all that marketing is based on the idea that what we buy can bring us peace. But no, it's only the end of seeking that can bring us peace. So it's not the object. Anyway, I mean, this is biblical stuff, actually.
Yeah.
Anyway, so it looked like the book was neither here nor there. It was the cessation of seeking that brought you peace, but because you were trained like we all are, it ramped back up again. The seeking mind ramped up again. And all of a sudden, the book no longer had the answers. Well, it never had the answers in the first place. It never had the answers in the first place. It's like okay, I marry the woman of my dreams. I'm so happy. Well, no, you're not happy because you married this great woman. You're happy because you're no longer seeking you're no longer seeking a woman. You've got it. She's great. She brings me. All of a sudden, she starts letting you down. Why isn't she making me happy anymore? Well, she never made you happy in the first place. You weren't seeking, so seeking seeking mind ramps up again, and all of a sudden, your new partner is not doing what she used to do, but she never did it in the first place, and this is why many marriages suffer. It's not actually. It's why all marriages suffer. So I thought that's an important distinction to make because I think that knowing that it's an amazing, it's just a revelation that and you can end seeking right now. Like to me, I am experiencing great relief speaking to you. That's because I'm not seeking. I'm just expressing myself. I have a friend, and we're just expressing ourselves, loving each other, and just having at it. But the mistake would be to think that being on your podcast is the source of my happiness. No, it's just I'm not seeking.
I disagree here.
Also, having me on at your podcast is the source. So anyway, I think this is
I'm joking,
an
man.
important distinction. I mean, that adoptees or anyone should understand because many like my brother, when my brother discovered that my father was adopted, he went on a wild goose chase to find our natural grandparents, and I kept telling him why what like it's fine like he can do whatever he wants to do. I don't really care, that's his business, but like he told me something like, well, I can't be complete until I figure this out. I'm like, oh no, 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 no. That's not going to bring you what you think it's going to bring you. He's not a happier person because he found some answers there. He's the same. So he's probably
He's
doing
complete.
whatever.
He's complete
Well,
already.
he's always complete. But the degree that he thinks that the outside is going to provide the relief and the peace is still not quite where I would like to see
Yeah,
it for him. By the
yeah.
way, it's not where I like to see it for me either. I'm not perfect in this respect. So, as far as the overriding point, um, what was it now? I forgot about being whole. We are whole. This is a much more, people would probably call it ethereal type of discussion. The question isn't really whether or not we are forever whole. The question is, who are we really? Who are we truly? And goes back to the first thing you said about separation. So the choices would be: we are an individual, a separate entity, a separate self, or we are, words you could use are consciousness itself, God's infinite being itself. That's why the book is called True Self, because I'm trying to make the argument through a myriad of examples in the book that we are not the separate selves we are trained to be. We actually are consciousness, not who we think we are. And I would say that exploration and realization is the actual whole point of being here in the first place. So I'm happy to answer any questions about that
Yeah.
because it could get a little hairy.
So you mentioned so as I see it, there's uppercase S self, true self, or also known as consciousness or awareness. That's one thing, and then there's body mind Garret Kramer, body mind Simon Ben, but body mind David Anthony Flower. That's what my birth mother called me.
Right.
My I found out I didn't know that she'd called me anything, and when I found out that she called me David Anthony Flower, I thought, oh, that's interesting. I've had two names. The truth never changes, so I can't be my name, right? That was the slightly. So we're making a distinction here between true self and body mind. Is that kind of about it? Is that a starting point for the next segment?
Yeah, we're making a distinction, although there actually isn't one. But for this
Indeed.
point of discussion, yes, because and the reason there isn't one is because the body mind is merely a modulation, a personification. I even use that word in the book of the true self.
Mhm.
So, um, and I will make the argument here that this isn't even close. Like once someone sees the evidence, really looks at the evidence, like because it's going to seem the other way at first. How can you tell me I don't inhabit a body? I feel my hand, I get it's how could you tell me that the world doesn't appear outside of me? Look at all these things out there. Like this is that is such belief with and a belief is without evidence. To believe is to not know. You've just been taught something. I can that whole book is about making the argument that that's not right. We've got it backward. So I suppose, yeah. So once you see that we have it backward, and once you see that the true self is indestructible, then
Unwoundable, indestructible, unwoundable, intact,
then
whole.
then it doesn't excuse people from doing horrible things. It doesn't mean you can do horrible things. It doesn't mean you should eat horrible things or treat people a certain way. No, 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 no. It would become illogical to even do those things. I mean, consciousness, at the perch of purity, consciousness, God's infinite being, is not damaging people. I mean, it's not even on the radar screen because there are no separate people to damage.
Yeah.
It's not a thing. So
That's
the
why
evidence,
the body mind is sometimes called the illusory separate self because it isn't a thing in its own right. It's an activity, you use the word modulation. It's a modulation of true self. Is that about right?
yes, we would never say it's not real, but even illusions are real. So all illusions have a reality to them. So we don't claim that this hockey puck doesn't appear to be a separate object. Okay, it does. However, it's not. It's like this hockey puck is made of the exact same thing as the air next to it is made of, as this hand is made of, as this computer is made of. It is all we call that essence or substance consciousness, or we can call it God too. I don't care; it doesn't matter. But it's all. I mean, even a scientist would say it's all molecules. The air is molecules, the hand's molecules, the puck is molecules. So I use these pucks as paperweights, by the way. That's why
Yeah.
they're on my desk. So um, the question then is: are you like this puck is an object within consciousness, made of the whole? The question is: are you an object within consciousness, made of consciousness also? And I would argue that no, you actually aren't. You are the whole, and this puck and the air and this hand from a guy named Garret is all made of you. That's what it is. Now you could play the game and from there jump into the world, into the universe, into the matrix as Simon, if you'd like. But that is the illusion. Like a dream at night, the entirety of existence, the entirety of life is happening within you. Like a dream at night appears in your mind. It doesn't actually, not an actual place. It's in your own mind. So, and then you're in the dream. So picture that. You're the dreamer and you're in the dream. I'm arguing the same thing is happening now.
Yeah.
You're the dreamer and you're in the dream. But all of this is clearly taking place within the dreamer, not outside of the dreamer. Nobody can argue this. I'm sorry, there's no evidence to the contrary. None. It's not supported. It's just belief.
Can I bring us back to uh, trauma with my metaphor for this? And because I'd love to hear your take on that, and that might prompt some other thoughts to right. So Nancy Verrier, she's got this theory, primal wound, right? That our essence is wounded, damaged by relinquishment, losing our birth. That's what she's saying, right? So my metaphor to understand this and to differentiate is rock paper scissors, right? So the rock is our true self, also known as consciousness. Right? Nancy Verrier, she would have if there's if in rock paper scissors the scissors make a cut, right? The knife, a knife or scissors make a cut, right? But we know from we know from the kids' game that the scissors can't cut the rock. The scissors can't cut the rock. So in that round of the game, the rock wins. Right? My metaphor for trauma. So I'm saying that the scissors are an incorrect metaphor for trauma. I'm saying a better metaphor for trauma would be the paper. So the paper hides who we are. It doesn't harm who we are. Trauma is a trauma conceals us rather than cutting us. So the name of the game is to unfold the paper back to reveal the true self.
Yeah, yeah. That's the not only the game of rock paper scissors, the game of life. That is the whole game of life. To discover that.
And that's what the book is about. That's what true self is about. It's about that.
Yeah. I mean,
A million
with
different ways, not a million, but a gazillion different ways to to see that, to
yeah,
point people towards that.
I'm trying with words to make the argument that we are not who we are trained to be. And even it's even important, in my opinion, to understand why we call the true self consciousness. Like that's even important. And we don't, it's just not some cool word that we came up with. I mean, is consciousness predominates your experience. You have never not been conscious. Awareness, you could say awareness too. Either word, I use them interchangeably. You have never not been aware. Now, someone may say, "Well, wait a second. I wasn't aware until I was born. So there was a time when I wasn't aware or I wasn't conscious." No, that's another sneaky belief. In your experience, I'll ask you right now. In your experience, have you ever not been conscious?
I don't remember
No,
because so yeah, there's no evidence. That's what you're getting at earlier,
no,
the lack of
there's
evidence.
no evidence. You could say, I don't, maybe I,
Oh,
have
he's
you ever not existed?
sorry, we lost you. You just glitched for a minute there,
Well,
Garrett.
sorry.
Yeah.
So have you ever not existed was the question. Same thing as have you ever been not been conscious? And the obviously in your direct experience, you've never not existed, right? Now
Yeah.
you were taught that there was a time before you were born, and there will be a time after you die where you will not exist. But that's if you hadn't been told about that those before and after kind of thing, you would know nothing of it. Your dog doesn't know anything of it. So what I'm saying
It's
is
hearsay, right? It's hearsay.
it's belief. It's in direct contrast to your direct it's in direct contrast to your direct experience. Your experience says, I have always been here. I've always been present. I've always been conscious. Now people would say, well, what about in deep sleep? What about under anesthesia? What if I'm knocked out? Well, that's not the absence of awareness. That's the awareness of absence. You're completely aware that you were absent, but it's the body that was absent. Consciousness is still there, or you would not even be able to point to that experience.
Yeah.
There's
You
no
you you wouldn't
evidence.
be able to say I had a good night's sleep.
Right, you wouldn't know that you blacked out. So again, it's the way I said it was right. It's not the absence of awareness, it's the awareness
Of absence.
of the absence. Awareness is always present, it has never left you. And this is why the true self is called awareness. It has never left you. It's just a word or consciousness that has never left you. I would argue that God's infinite being has never left you either, because that's a good word. It's the religious type of word for who the true self, God. So yeah, these are things and once you see that, you will realize your true nature, your infinite and eternal nature, and the events then start to lose their grip on us.
Yeah.
Um, I would say, in my own experience, whether it was with my father or other difficult events in my life, I'm at the point now where this knowing of self is so front and center for me that I wouldn't change any of those experiences. I wouldn't try to go back there and fix them. I don't need to understand them. I'm good. And I wouldn't change them if I could.
Yeah.
I'm good.
You're good.
And I cannot say that. I wouldn't be able to say that 20 years ago.
No, no.
Sure.
Can I give you another one of your reflections from the book, uh, and then uh, create my own equivalent of it, right? So it didn't even nod, listeners, but I'm going with it, right? Fear arises within you, but you are never afraid. You are always you, right? So I, I'd go on to say, given what our subject matter today, right? Trauma arises within you, but you are never traumatized. You are always you.
Yep. Right on.
So what we're doing here, I think, is separating feelings from identity, how we feel from who we are.
I like the first way you said it better than how we feel than who we are. Feel, because we don't really feel feelings. That's a whole. I think I write about that in the book too. It's just another belief. But feelings arise, but I'm not. I can feel this hockey puck. I don't know how I'm going to feel a feeling. So just to be clear, feelings, yes, feelings arise within us, but we never. So insecurity, just to use a feeling, so-called feeling or experience, insecurity can arise within me, definitely, most definitely. But I never feel insecure, and I never am insecure. I am always me. The true self does not become insecure. So people say, I'm really insecure. I'm traumatized. No, 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 no. You experience trauma. Fair enough. You experience insecurity. Fair enough. But you are not those things. No, you are always you. And I don't mean Simon and Garret, obviously.
Yeah. Yeah. So uh, I, I saw an adoptee, and also she's also an adoptive parent. She put this message out on LinkedIn, and the title of it was "I am trauma."
It's innocently, my heart goes out to her, but that's just pure blasphemy. Any any identification after I am is a lie. I am is the name of God, the name of the true self. I am. Anytime a label goes after that, it's a lie. I am smart. I am traumatized. I am great. I am happy. I am sad. I am lonely. No, no, no. Those are experiences that arise within the I am, the self, and they have no power over the I am.
Yeah.
And they will quickly return back to the I am if we know this. It's kind of like a whirlpool, and I use this metaphor in that book, a whirlpool that arises within the sea has no power to damage the sea. So, why would the sea identify with the whirlpool? Why would the sea try to eradicate the whirlpool? Why would the sea try to investigate or figure it out? No, the sea knows that the whirlpool is a modulation that arises within itself, made of itself, and thus has no power to damage itself, the sea. So, what does the sea do? Nothing. The sea, the sea, the whirlpool arises, whether it's placid or even violent, sea cannot be damaged, and it quickly returns back from where it came. Now, if the sea makes the mistake of trying to quiet it down, it gives it strength. It never has any real strength, but the misunderstanding magnifies it. It makes it put the sea then puts all kinds of effort into extinguishing the whirlpool, and it has no power to extinguish the whirlpool. The whirlpool will extinguish or not on its own, but either way, the sea's fine. So that's what I'm saying. These experiences are whirlpools that arise within us, made of us, and thus have no power to damage us. None.
So we're the sea, and our
We are
feelings are we're the sea, and that our feelings are the whirlpool.
any object. So, but any
Any object.
object, by objects, I mean anything that can be known. So anything that has an objective or object-based quality to it. So anything that can be known and anything that has a shelf life, that's an object. So an object would be a thought, a feeling, an event, hockey pucks, other objects, the weather, human beings, anything that can be known is an object. And objects arise within the true self consciousness and are made of the true self.
Yeah. Wow.
This is why you can watch a movie tonight. Say it's a poignant movie, or let's say it's a movie where someone's experiencing grief in the movie, and you'll start to cry. you could cry. You don't know these people. It's a movie, even. It's fake, so to speak. It's all fake, but okay. So you start to cry. Why? Well, that movie or that character in the movie that's so-called suffering is a modulation of your own being. It's visceral, not visceral because you can relate to the character. It's visceral because the character is made of you. So it touches you. If humanity knew this, we would have no more conflict. If
So,
humanity knew
yeah.
that all things are, that we share a singular being and all things are made of our being, then you would have peace in an instant. In an
So
instant, there would be no more conflict.
let me try something from my life, from my experience to kind of exemplify that what you've just said, or not. See if I'm on the right track, right? So I get my adoption file, right? I'm 59. Uh, I get my adoption file. I think I was like maybe 47, right? In the letter, sorry, in the file, there's a letter from my birth mum, and it's to the social worker, and it's about a teddy bear that she wants me to have, right? And reading this letter, I feel my birth mother's pat, right? I feel her pain.
Or pain. Okay.
I feel her pain. I feel her grief. I feel her loss, and then I and that then morphs into I feel her love for me, and then I feel I merge with her, like the Spice Girls song "Two Become One." Right? I merge with her, and I realize that there's no difference. There's no two swimming pools become one swimming pool, right? And then I'm overcome with this feeling of love and oneness. And at the time, I think I'm just connecting with her. But on reflection, later on, I realizing I'm becoming one with the world. I'm having a lived experience of wholeness. I am seeing that phrase, we're not spiritual, not human beings having a spiritual experience. We're one spiritual being having 7 billion human experiences or whatever. I have I have that as not a theory, as practice, as experience. Um, and so that for me feels like oneness.
Intimacy is the absence of the personal. There was no, that line of separation was no longer there. So
The line in the sand is made of
it,
sand.
delusion, it becomes. I would hope that people, anybody who's listening to this, has been intimate in their with a so-called other in their life. And it doesn't have to be a partner. It could be holding your granddaughter's hand walking on the beach. It could be laying on the ground with your dog. We've all experienced. It could be just walking in nature. You're intimate with nature. You're one with nature. That is not. I know how you described it, but it's not really two becoming one. It's you're never two. It's then obvious that we're never actually two. We don't even come together. There's nothing, because if you know if we were, I and my father are one. It's not I and my father are two who can then become one. We it's the illusion is that we're two. That's the
It's the
illusion.
end. It's the disappearance of the illusion, or seeing through
So
the illusion.
right. It's yes, either way. So it's that momentary glimpse into the truth. And when you read that, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think I am, you're any hostility you felt was like ridiculous. Like this woman, I love her. Like she, yeah, I share her being. We not because I'm her son, but because we. That's a truth. Like it's so obvious in that moment when my dad died. Sometimes even today, my wife will get defensive and say something not so nice about my father. Now, it's not that bad. I want to be clear. Like she gets it. But maybe something will come up and she'll make a snip like a little snide comment. But it's totally out of her love for me, if that makes any sense. Like I don't even want to hear it. I I have no recollection of any of that. The only recollection I have since he died is this guy was okay. This guy was doing the best he can. This guy was pretty cool. And he did a lot for me. I don't even remember the shit. And there was shit. Like, I don't even want to talk about it because I can't even, it's not like I'm avoiding it. It's just not there anymore. And I would define that as the presence of his body was kind of veiling the love, veiling the unity, veiling the oneness. Now that his body's not there anymore, there is nothing but the truth that we share a being. And not because he's my father. That no, no, no. I share my being with everyone and everything. It's because that's just true.
Yeah.
So I think that in that moment, which is an unbelievable moment, I think without some type of sense of what we're talking about, my fear is that people will have that kind of moment that you described, but then they'll personalize it. They'll then personalize it to the situation at hand. She left me, and then they'll somehow make it about that when it really wasn't about that.
It, it
It, it,
it seems very personal, but actually it's universal.
100%. It's the washing away of the veil. It's the momentary evaporation of the shroud that has of the truth, and that's unbelievable. And we should, I think, that you can do it in any context. In your case with adoption, I think that's actually very cool. It's a very good metaphor for all this, actually. But I think the mistake would be to make to not go to go to adoption in this case, or father son relationships in my case, and then he was adopted and what happened, why he was the way he was, and
Yeah, yeah,
all that stuff we talked about, as opposed to saying, oh my God, what is this really showing us?
yeah.
And it doesn't matter what the situation is. That experience of relief, love, peace is because the veil of separation has momentarily been lifted. That's it. And when that's lifted, it is obvious that we are one with everything, all things. That is the foundational truth that, in my opinion, is the reason why we're here to keep exploring that. That's that's the so-called test.
And there's no trauma in the oneness.
Well, there, there is trauma can arise, but it is still made of the space in which it's arisen. So
Okay.
it's not
It's loving
bad.
trauma, yeah.
It's not a bad. Nothing that arises within the universe, and there is no outside of the universe. So it all has to arise within. And if it all rises within, it has to be made of the same essence. That's why that book, the subtitle is The Essence of Being, the essence of being,
Yeah.
because it's all the same essence. So trauma again. We got the message. This occurred to me. We've got the message of trauma flipped. If trauma's arising, it's a call to come back to this truth.
Yeah.
It's not a call to fix yourself. There's nothing wrong.
Yeah.
It's absolutely right. So if trauma and ensuing angst or insecurity,
Insecurity.
anxiety, fear, that is a calling that we're overlooking the truth.
Yeah.
I mean,
Brilliant.
it's not something that needs to be remedied.
And that's
It
so a lot of the book, you mentioned it a few times in the book that insecurity is our biggest friend because it's letting us know, it's pointing us back to the truth of who we are. It's saying you're getting colder, go get warmer. I'm talking about hide and seek, ladies and gentlemen.
yes, it's practically speaking, I would say that's probably the biggest um, gift in my life that I woke up to. That I was fighting and trying to fix and overcome insecurity. That is a treadmill to nowhere. You will never do that because insecurity, as you just rightly said, is a gift that is showing us that we're overlooking the truth of who we are, overlooking the truth, period, but of who we are. So, how do we get that so wrong? How was I taught as a young child insecurity bad, confidence good?
Yeah.
Well, no, 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 no. So
Mm.
then what that's really saying is fake it, bravado, put a big strong face to the world, be
Yeah.
disingenuous. No, Alan Watts wrote a book called The Wisdom of Insecurity. The whole book is about this. I wouldn't even recommend reading the book. I think we just described the whole thing,
Mm.
but he wrote a whole book on the called The Wisdom of Insecurity.
Yeah.
I mean,
Hey,
that's
Garrett, as you said at the start, we could talk forever. So maybe we can do a round two at some point. But I just want to thank you for your time
absolutely
today, I've taken so much from it, my friend. Really delighted to spend time with you. And thank you too, listeners. I hope you've enjoyed it. And I guess you wouldn't have stayed to the end if you hadn't. So hey, thank you, Garrett. Thank you, listeners, and we'll speak to you again very soon. Take care. Bye bye.